What if everything you've believed about attractiveness is wrong? What if real attraction has nothing to do with your face, your height, or the shape of your body, but everything to do with the energy you give off the moment you walk into a room? Most people chase beauty by chasing perfection. They spend their lives trying to fit into boxes, checklists, filters, and trends. But the truth is, some of the most unforgettable people in the world don't fit in. They don't try to, and yet they magnetize others effortlessly. Without begging for attention, without pretending, without needing to be anyone else but fully themselves. You've seen it. Someone enters the room and suddenly everything slows down. Heads turn, not because they're the best-looking person there, but because there's something about them you can't explain. It's presence, it's confidence, it's self-respect, and it's something you can build, yes, even if you feel invisible right now. Because being attractive isn't a gift. It's not something a few lucky people are born with. It's a result of habits, mindset, and how deeply you show up for your own life. We live in a world obsessed with surface-level validation, but people are starving for depth. They crave someone who can see them, someone who makes them feel understood, someone who stands tall, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. That's the kind of attraction that changes everything. That's the kind of person you're capable of becoming. And it starts by unlearning what you thought made you valuable. Because you were never supposed to be perfect. You were supposed to be powerful. The habits you're about to learn won't just make others look at you differently. They'll make you look at yourself differently. And that's where real change begins. When you stop waiting for the world to give you permission to feel worthy, and you start showing up like you already are. When you no longer need to be the loudest in the room because your silence speaks volumes. When you don't just wear confidence, you live it, breathe it, own it. So if you've ever felt overlooked, rejected, or not good enough, know this: you're not broken. You've just been trained to seek approval instead of owning your presence. But that ends now. Because attractiveness is not about chasing people, it's about becoming someone people don't want to walk away from. And every habit you're about to learn will pull you closer to that version of yourself, the one who doesn't just enter the room but shifts the energy inside it. Stay with me, because what's coming next will change the way you carry yourself forever. Not just to be noticed, but to be remembered. Not just to be liked, but to be respected. And not just to attract others, but to fall deeply, completely in love with the person you're becoming. The most attractive people in the world aren't the ones constantly trying to impress. They're the ones who know how to be fully present. When you're truly present, you don't have to force a connection. It happens naturally. You don't have to dominate conversations. You listen with such intensity that others feel heard in ways they rarely do. Presence is powerful because it makes people feel seen. And in a world that is constantly distracted, people crave that more than anything. Being present isn't about saying the right thing or having the perfect reaction. It's about slowing down, looking someone in the eyes, and giving them your undivided attention. It's about putting your phone down, quieting the noise in your head, and showing up with your whole heart. That kind of focus doesn't just make people feel good, it makes them feel important. And when people feel important around you, they remember you. They're drawn to you. You become unforgettable not because you tried to be, but because you chose to truly be there. You can feel the difference instantly. Someone who's present gives off an energy that says, "You matter, I'm here with you." And that energy is rare. It cuts through anxiety. It silences overthinking. It builds trust without needing words. You don't have to be the smartest, funniest, or most experienced person in the room when you master presence. You just have to care enough to be fully engaged. Because real attractiveness isn't a performance, it's connection. Presence is not a talent, it's a choice. It's a habit that starts with self-awareness. The moment you become aware of your breath, your posture, your tone, you begin to reclaim your energy. You stop scattering yourself across fears, regrets, and imagined outcomes. You anchor yourself in the now, and the now is where your power lives. It's where you make your impact. It's where people truly feel you. Attractive people don't rush. They don't fidget or ramble. They move, speak, and listen with calm certainty. That calm comes from knowing that they're enough. Not perfect, just enough. When you practice presence daily, something changes inside you. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop rehearsing every sentence. You stop needing validation because your attention turns outward. It's no longer about how you're being perceived. It's about how deeply you're showing up. This one habit can shift how people respond to you in every setting. Relationships, friendships, work, everything. Because when you're present, people can feel your strength without you saying a word. They trust you. They're drawn to you. Not because you tried to impress them, but because you gave them the one thing they rarely get, your full attention. And in a world starving for connection, presence is the most attractive force you can possess. Don't underestimate its quiet power. Build it, strengthen it, live it, and watch how the world begins to lean in closer, one person at a time. There's something unshakably attractive about someone who respects themselves, not just in how they speak, but in how they carry themselves when no one is watching. Self-respect is a silent force. It doesn't scream. It doesn't seek approval. It simply exists in the way you walk into a room, in the way you say no without guilt, in the way you choose yourself even when it's hard. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. And the people who possess it radiate a kind of confidence that doesn't need to be explained. When you respect yourself, you stop tolerating what drains you. You stop overextending to be liked. You stop trying to fix people who never asked to be healed. Self-respect is the boundary between who you used to be and who you're becoming. And it is one of the most magnetic qualities a person can have, because people sense when you have standards. They sense when you know your worth. And that energy draws in those who are ready to meet you at that level. Too many people trade their power for validation. They accept less, they shrink, they chase people who barely look back. Not because they want to, but because they've forgotten what it feels like to be enough without begging. But the moment you decide that your peace is more important than their approval, everything changes. You stop needing to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And that kind of self-assurance is irresistible. Attraction begins with how you treat yourself when no one's applauding. Do you keep promises to yourself? Do you protect your time? Do you speak to yourself with kindness or with cruelty? Every habit, every decision either builds your self-respect or breaks it down. And when you learn to honor yourself daily, it shows in the way others respond to you. You no longer have to demand respect. You become someone who commands it naturally. This is where transformation begins, not in trying to become someone else, but in returning to the version of you that never needed to beg to be seen. The version of you that trusts your worth, that walks away when something feels wrong, that doesn't tolerate disrespect in the name of love. When you live from this place, people feel it. They sense your strength. They adjust how they treat you without you saying a word. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to stop abandoning yourself. And when you do, the world starts to reflect that power back to you. Respect is not something you demand from others first. It's something you give to yourself relentlessly. In your habits, in your mindset, in your energy. Build it like a muscle. Guard it like your life depends on it. Because the more you respect yourself, the more you attract people, opportunities, and energy that do the same. That's not just attractive, that's unstoppable. There is nothing more powerful than someone who stays calm when everything around them is trying to shake them. Emotional control isn't about being cold or detached. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that chaos doesn't pull you out of alignment. When others panic, you breathe. When tension rises, you stay rooted. That level of emotional mastery doesn't go unnoticed. It creates a presence that feels steady, safe, and unshakably attractive. You don't need to dominate a room with volume. You dominate it with stability. When you've trained yourself not to react to every trigger, every insult, every wave of discomfort, you earn something that no external beauty can replace: inner strength. People are drawn to those who bring peace, not panic. And when you become the calm in the storm, others feel safe around you. Not because you pretend to have it all together, but because your energy says, I don't need to control everything, I can control myself. The world is filled with emotional reactors, people who explode when things go wrong, who crumble under stress, who lash out when they feel unseen. That's the easy route. The powerful path is the one where you pause, where you recognize the emotion, but don't let it decide for you. That's not suppression, that's leadership over yourself. And when you live like that, people notice. Not with applause, but with trust. They lean in, they listen, because your presence brings clarity to their noise. Attractiveness isn't just about looks, it's about how you make others feel. And calm people make others feel safe. They make the room lighter. They don't add fuel to the fire. They extinguish it with grace. But that calm has to start within. It starts in the moments when no one is watching, when you catch yourself before saying something you'll regret, when you choose patience over pride, when you breathe instead of breaking. Every one of those moments rewires your mind for strength. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings don't own you. It means you can be deeply emotional and still deeply grounded. That's rare. That's magnetic. People feel the difference between someone who's ruled by their moods and someone who knows how to navigate them. One repels. the other inspires. You have that power inside you, right now, not tomorrow, not someday, now. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is presence. To show up fully in the moment without being hijacked by emotion. To lead with clarity, not confusion. To be a source of stability in a world addicted to chaos. That kind of energy doesn't just change how people see you. It changes how you see yourself. And once you learn to master your emotions, nothing and no one can steal your peace. That's the power you carry. That's what makes you unforgettable. The way you speak is a direct reflection of the way you see yourself. Every word, every pause, every tone carries your self-image into the world. People who speak with intention don't just communicate. They influence. They don't rush to fill silence. They know the power of choosing words that matter. In a world addicted to noise, those who speak with calm clarity stand out without even trying. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You need to speak from a place of inner certainty, not insecurity. Attractive people aren't those who talk the most. They're the ones who speak with purpose. Every sentence lands with weight because it's not thrown around carelessly. It's grounded, or controlled, meaningful. There's strength in restraint. There's presence in pacing. And when you speak from a place of stillness, people listen, not out of politeness, but because they feel your intention. They sense that your words aren't trying to impress, but to connect. That kind of speech is magnetic. It starts with self-awareness. Not every thought needs to become a sentence. Not every feeling needs to be voiced. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The more comfortable you become with stillness, the more powerful your words become. Because they're not trying to fill a void, they're expressing clarity. You begin to say only what adds value. You stop over-explaining, over-justifying, overcompensating. You let your presence carry what your words don't need to explain. People can feel desperation in conversation. It's not about what you say, it's about why you're saying it. Are you speaking to connect or to be liked? Are you expressing yourself or trying to prove your worth? The most attractive voices come from people who aren't performing. They're sharing truth without fear of reaction. They don't speak to be the center of attention. They speak because they have something worth saying, and they're not afraid of silence in between. Your voice is a tool. It can calm, inspire, empower, or overwhelm. But its power lies in control. Speak slowly. Breathe deeply. Let your words rise from intention, not insecurity. Let them carry conviction without aggression. People don't remember every word you say, but they remember how you made them feel. When you speak with calm strength, you don't need to convince anyone. Your tone does the work for you. There is a quiet authority in someone who doesn't chase attention with noise. Their words carry weight because they are chosen, not spilled. That's what makes them captivating, not performance, not volume, intention. When you master the way you speak, you start to master the way others respond to you. And that kind of communication builds trust, respect, and deep attraction. Speak like someone who knows their worth, not to prove it, but because it's already rooted deep within. That's the power of intentional speech. That's how you become unforgettable without ever raising your voice. Attraction isn't just felt through words. It's seen in the way you move, in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. People are drawn to energy before they ever hear your voice. Your posture, your stride, your gestures, they all speak on your behalf. And when you move with purpose, you radiate quiet power. There's a confidence that doesn't need to be loud, because it's rooted in control, not performance. You don't need to demand attention, you embody it. Your body tells the world how you feel about yourself. Slumped shoulders whisper self-doubt. Unsteady steps signal hesitation. But an upright posture, a deliberate walk, a calm stance, they reveal someone who knows who they are. And that message is powerful. It tells the room that you are grounded, that you belong, that you don't need permission to take up space. Most people shrink themselves without even realizing it. But the moment you choose to stand tall, breathe deeply, and move with intention, everything about you begins to change. When you walk, walk like someone with vision. When you enter a room, do it with presence, not apology. When you sit, sit like someone who isn't trying to disappear. You don't need arrogance. You need alignment. A body aligned with confidence sends signals the mind can't ignore. People notice, even if they can't explain why. It's not about being flawless. It's about being fully in your body. Awake, present, certain. Even the smallest adjustments can shift your energy. Straighten your spine, uncross your arms, lift your chin slightly. Let your eyes meet the world instead of avoiding it. These habits aren't just physical, they're psychological. They teach your nervous system how to feel safe in your own skin, and safety breeds confidence. The more comfortable you become in your own body, the more others feel comfortable around you. That's what draws people in, not perfection, but presence. It's easy to underestimate how much your physicality affects how others respond to you, but your energy enters before your words. People make judgments in seconds, not because they're cruel, but because their brains are wired to do so. And when your body says, "I'm here, I'm enough, I'm steady," people listen without you saying a thing. That kind of unspoken message is irresistible. You don't need to force attraction. You need to embody who you are becoming. Let your movement mirror your mindset. Let your posture reflect your power. Let every step remind you and the world that you are not here to hide. You are here to rise. The body doesn't lie. It will either betray your fear or broadcast your strength. Train it daily to represent the person you're becoming. That's how you turn presence into magnetism. That's how you walk into every space and change the atmosphere without a single word. People are drawn to those who are deeply committed to something greater than themselves. There's an undeniable pull toward individuals who are building something, who are constantly sharpening their craft, who wake up each day with purpose etched into their spirit. Mastery is magnetic. It doesn't matter what path you're on. When you pursue excellence with relentless dedication, the world takes notice. You don't need to announce your goals when your effort speaks louder than your words ever could. The most attractive energy you can carry is hunger. Hunger for growth, for knowledge, for refinement. It's the fire in your eyes when you talk about what you're building. It's the discipline in your actions when no one is clapping. It's the refusal to settle for average when you know greatness is waiting on the other side of discomfort. That energy is rare. Most people dabble, few devote, most want results, few want mastery. But the ones who choose mastery become unforgettable, not because they chase people, but because they chase purpose. Skill breeds confidence. Confidence breeds presence. And presence breeds attraction. When you master something, no matter how big or small, you begin to radiate self-assurance. You no longer rely on shallow validation because your competence becomes your foundation. People feel that. They sense when someone knows who they are and what they bring to the table, not through arrogance, but through evidence. Evidence built through years of quiet consistency. This isn't about being the best in the world. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. It's about showing up when you're tired, focused when you're distracted, determined when you're discouraged. Mastery isn't built through motivation. It's built through discipline. It's the invisible force that transforms potential into power. And power, when quiet and controlled, is impossible to ignore. There's a kind of beauty that comes from devotion, the way you hold yourself when you're proud of your effort, the way your eyes light up when you speak about what you love. That inner glow cannot be replicated with looks or charm. It only comes from doing the hard work, from staying committed long after the excitement fades, from knowing that your life means something because you're building something with your hands, your mind, your heart. People will feel your energy shift the moment you decide to commit. You'll stop overthinking your worth because it will be evident in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you lead. You become magnetic not because you're seeking attention, but because you become someone worth watching. That's the quiet reward of mastery. It doesn't chase, it attracts, not by accident, but by intention. And when you live with that kind of purpose, the world begins to lean in, not to see what you're wearing, but to feel what you're becoming. That's real attraction. That's the power of being fully devoted to your craft. How you present yourself to the world tells a silent story about how you feel on the inside. The way you dress, groom, and carry your outer appearance is not about vanity. It's about self-respect. It shows the world, and more importantly, shows yourself that you care. You don't need expensive clothes or designer labels. You need intention. You need to look in the mirror and know that you showed up with effort, because effort is attractive. It speaks louder than any brand ever could. When you respect your appearance, you send a signal to your mind that you're worth the time. You begin to walk differently, think differently, carry yourself with more pride. Not pride in ego, but pride in presence. When you take the time to care for yourself, others feel it. They don't just see you, they see the standard you hold yourself to. And people rise or fall to meet the standards you silently express. Attractiveness isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about looking like you honor yourself because you do. Clean, intentional, put together. That's all it takes. When you care about your grooming, your hygiene, your clothing, even in simple ways, you instantly become more magnetic. Not because of the material, but because of the message. I value myself. And when you value yourself, others are far more likely to do the same. This is not about looking good for other people. It's about becoming someone you feel proud of when no one is around. When you look in the mirror and see someone who tries, someone who refuses to settle into neglect, someone who takes command of the small details. That alone builds confidence. And confidence, real confidence, doesn't need to be loud. It glows. It lives in your posture, in your eye contact, in the way you show up to your day. Small changes create massive shifts. Iron your clothes, groom your beard, fix your hair, clean your shoes. Choose clothes that fit, that feel like you, that express dignity without needing to shout. None of this requires perfection. It requires care, because care is rare, and rare is always attractive. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about showing the world who you truly are, underneath the layers of doubt, procrastination, and self-neglect. It's about dressing in a way that says, I showed up, I'm ready, I am not hiding. That energy changes conversations. It changes opportunities. It changes how you feel when you walk into a room. When you begin to treat yourself like someone who matters, the world starts to treat you that way too. Not because of luck, but because of energy. And that energy starts with how you show up every day, starting with how you care for yourself. When effort becomes your standard, excellence becomes your baseline. And that, without question, is one of the most attractive things you can ever become. There's a quiet power in someone who chooses gratitude over bitterness, light over darkness, optimism over complaint. That choice doesn't come from naivety, it comes from strength. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to point out what's wrong, to dwell on what's missing, to let frustration shape your identity. But it takes discipline to wake up every day and decide to see the good, to speak the good, to become the good. That discipline radiates. It creates an energy that draws people in, not because you're pretending life is perfect, but because you're showing them what's possible when you refuse to sink. Gratitude changes your posture. It shifts your focus. It rewires your presence. You become someone who doesn't just exist, but elevates. Someone who uplifts others without even trying, just by how you show up. And people crave that. In a world full of chaos, the person who brings peace becomes the magnet. Not by force, but by frequency. Because gratitude isn't just a feeling. It's a frequency you carry into every room, every conversation, every moment. Negativity drains, positivity fuels. But this isn't about fake smiles or shallow encouragement. It's about seeing challenges and choosing not to be consumed by them. It's about walking through fire and refusing to let it harden your heart. That's real strength. That's the kind of energy that people feel without you saying a word. It's the subtle glow in your presence, the calm certainty in your voice, the warmth in your eyes. That's what makes you unforgettable. When you practice gratitude, you stop waiting for life to be perfect before you feel worthy. You realize that joy doesn't come from what's around you. It comes from what's alive within you. And when you tap into that, everything changes. You don't just attract people, you inspire them. You show them what's possible. You remind them that happiness isn't found, it's created. And that creation starts with choice. Start by giving thanks for the smallest things, your breath, your growth, your strength. Train your mind to see what's working instead of obsessing over what's broken. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. It gives it purpose. It takes the sting of hardship and transforms it into wisdom, resilience, grace. And that transformation becomes your aura. It becomes the quiet reason why people trust you, respect you, admire you. You don't have to be the loudest, richest, or most successful person in the room. Be the one who carries peace. Be the one who chooses light. Be the one who lives with a spirit of thanks, not because everything is easy, but because you've decided to lead with appreciation. That leadership makes you magnetic. That mindset makes you rare. And rarity, when rooted in gratitude, is the most powerful kind of beauty there is. Let your energy speak louder than your words. Let gratitude be the light that draws everything good toward you. People are drawn to those who know who they are. There is an undeniable force in someone who walks into the world without needing approval, validation, or applause. That kind of presence doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from self-respect. When you respect yourself, you stop begging others to. You stop molding yourself into what they want. You stop shrinking to fit into their comfort zones. You rise into your full stature, not to impress, but to express. Because when you know your worth, you no longer chase things that dishonor it. You no longer tolerate energy that drains you, conversations that belittle you, or environments that suppress your potential. You protect your peace not with walls, but with standards. You protect your soul not by fighting harder, but by walking away faster. You become powerful the moment you decide to stop abandoning yourself for people who never deserved you. You become unstoppable when you realize that your energy is your currency. Where you spend it matters. Who you allow into your space shapes your spirit. And the world doesn't give you back what you deserve. It gives you back what you demand. When your boundaries become clear, your life begins to reflect your values. And that clarity turns into confidence, not the loud kind, the calm kind, the unshakable kind, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. Because confidence isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent with your truth. When you carry that level of authenticity, you stop attracting people who need you to be small. You stop attracting experiences that require your self-betrayal. Instead, you attract alignment. You draw in what speaks to your soul, not by force, but by frequency. You no longer tolerate chaos because you've cultivated inner calm. You no longer tolerate disrespect because you've learned how to deeply respect yourself. And that shift is what changes everything. Your habits change, your decisions change, your circle changes, because when you elevate your standards, everything around you either rises with you or falls away. Being true to yourself is not selfish, it's sacred. Your peace is not negotiable. Your purpose is not up for debate. And your presence is not something to be wasted on people who only value convenience over connection. Protecting your energy is an act of self-love. And self-love isn't about spa days or self-help books. It's about discipline. It's about holding yourself accountable to the life you know you're meant to live, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's lonely, even when it means walking alone. You weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. And standing out begins with standing firmly in who you are. That's how you become magnetic. Not by chasing people, but by choosing yourself. Not by pleasing the world, but by honoring your soul. Because when your energy is rooted in truth, everything that's meant for you will recognize you, and nothing not meant for you will ever disturb you again. True strength is not found in how loud you speak, but in how firmly you stand in silence. It is not in how many people notice you, but in how unshakable you are when no one is watching. When your confidence is built on external applause, you'll collapse when it's taken away. But when your power comes from within, you can walk through storms untouched. Because nothing outside of you has the authority to define you. That is where real attractiveness begins. Not in appearance, not in charm, but in quiet certainty. People sense it. They may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. A person who knows who they are moves differently. They don't compete. They don't chase. They don't react to noise. They respond from clarity, groundedness, and unwavering self-respect. This energy is magnetic because it is rare. Most are trapped in performance, constantly seeking to be enough for others. But those who step out of that loop and reclaim their time, attention, and truth, those people become unforgettable. Not because they're louder, but because they're real. Not because they dominate the room, but because their presence speaks louder than their words. This is the kind of energy that transforms how you show up. You stop asking for permission. You stop looking sideways. You stop diluting your truth for temporary comfort. You start speaking with intention. You start moving with alignment. You start treating yourself like someone who matters because you do. And when you carry yourself that way, life begins to mirror that belief. You stop clinging to what hurts. You stop tolerating what drains. You stop giving energy to what insults your soul. Instead, you become selective, not from arrogance, but from wisdom. You've learned that not everything deserves access to your mind, your heart, your future. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. That's evolution. That's the result of doing the deep inner work, the kind of work that doesn't seek applause but creates transformation. You no longer need to prove your worth because you've already embodied it. You no longer fear being alone because you've learned how to be whole. From that space, your habits change. You choose discipline over comfort, integrity over approval, growth over familiarity. You stop running from discomfort because you realize that's where strength is built. You embrace the hard things, not because they're easy, but because you've outgrown the easy path. You're not here to coast. You're here to rise, to refine, to become someone even your past self wouldn't recognize. You owe that to yourself, not because the world demands it, but because your future requires it. This is how you become magnetic, not by chasing attention, but by building depth, not by pleasing everyone, but by honoring your truth, not by showing off, but by showing up for yourself. Because nothing is more attractive than a soul that has been through the fire, faced itself, and chosen to rise anyway, with grace, with grit, and with purpose. Attractiveness begins with self-respect, but it deepens with emotional discipline. The ability to stay composed when everything around you is begging for a reaction is a quiet superpower. When you master the art of not reacting, you stop giving others control over your internal state. You stop handing out your peace like it's disposable. You stop being a puppet to chaos, and you start becoming the author of your own experience. Emotionally disciplined people don't suppress their feelings. They simply refuse to be ruled by them. They pause, they breathe, they decide. And in that pause, they claim power that most people never realize they have. This type of control is not cold, it's not distant. It's rooted in wisdom. When you understand that not every situation deserves your energy, not every comment deserves your response, not every argument deserves your presence, you grow into someone others can't provoke. That's not weakness, it's mastery. Because anyone can yell, anyone can argue, anyone can explode, but very few can stay centered in the storm. The ones who can move through life untouched by unnecessary drama, not because they're avoiding conflict, but because they're aligned with peace. And peace is attractive. It makes people wonder what you know that they don't. It creates an aura that draws attention without trying. That's the kind of energy that makes you magnetic. Not fake perfection, not forced smiles, but calm, stable, grounded presence. When you no longer react to every trigger, you send a message to the world: I belong to myself. I choose my state. I protect my energy. I walk with purpose. That presence becomes your identity. And from that identity, your standards rise. You don't settle for chaos. You don't tolerate confusion. You don't accept inconsistency because you know what it cost you to find clarity. You know what it took to heal. You know how hard you fought to become calm in a world that profits from your panic. And when you operate from that foundation, your decisions elevate. You say no without guilt. You walk away without fear. You choose environments that nurture your soul, not ones that constantly test your limits. You stop proving your worth and start preserving your energy. That shift changes everything, not just how people see you, but how they treat you, because you teach the world how to engage with you by how you engage with yourself. If you handle yourself with patience, strength, and truth, others will mirror that back to you, or they'll fall away. This is how you rise, not with noise, but with depth, not with applause, but with awareness, not with perfection, but with presence. True attractiveness is quiet, steady, and deeply felt. It's not built in the mirror. It's built in moments of restraint, in choices made from self-awareness, in the quiet conviction that you are not here to react. You are here to rise above again and again until peace is your baseline and power is your nature. When your energy is rooted in self-respect and emotional control, the way you speak changes. Your tone softens but carries more weight. You no longer need to raise your voice to be heard because your presence speaks louder than your words. Confidence is no longer a performance. It becomes a quiet certainty that flows through your posture, your pace, and your decisions. People listen not because you're loud, but because you're clear. You no longer compete for attention because you've learned how to give it to yourself first. You don't demand love. You attract it by becoming someone who loves themselves with discipline and grace. That kind of inner strength is what makes people unforgettable. Not the way they dress, not the words they memorize, but the energy they bring into a room, the unshakable calm, the self-trust, the refusal to shrink. That's what leaves a mark. That's what sets you apart. When you walk like you've already made peace with who you are, you stop needing validation to move forward. You stop looking around for permission to rise. You begin to radiate a rare kind of beauty, one that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. That is what creates magnetic presence. It's not what you show others, it's what you no longer need to prove. Real attractiveness is deeply tied to boundaries. It's knowing what you allow into your life and what you never will again. It's the courage to draw lines where you used to leave the door wide open. It's the maturity to know that not everyone deserves access just because they ask nicely. You begin to protect your mind like sacred ground. You guard your time like it's priceless, because it is. You speak your truth not to convince, but to be clear. You walk away not out of ego, but because peace is expensive and you've stopped negotiating its price. This is where your power compounds. This is how momentum builds. You stop bending just to be liked, and you start aligning with what makes you powerful. That alignment is rare. That alignment is noticed. That alignment is what makes people pause when you enter the room. Not because you're trying, but because your energy is grounded. Because your presence says, I'm not here for chaos. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to stand in truth, protect my light, and move with meaning. When you cultivate this kind of self-possession, your life changes in quiet but massive ways. The wrong people fall away. The right ones lean in. Opportunities begin to meet you at your level because you finally stopped lowering yourself to reach them. This is how you grow into someone unshakable, someone magnetic, someone deeply rooted and fully alive. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And in that strength, you became the version of yourself you always needed but never knew how to become, until now. When you no longer chase what's not aligned with your worth, life begins to reshape itself around your standards. The chaos outside begins to quiet because the war within has ended. You've stopped apologizing for evolving. You've stopped explaining why you protect your energy. You've stopped justifying your growth to those committed to misunderstanding it. That shift is where your true transformation begins. You no longer beg for connection. You no longer plead for love. You embody it. You carry it. And because of that, you attract it without needing to grasp. You're no longer starved for external approval because you've learned to feed your soul with your own truth. People feel it when you're rooted in self-worth. You speak with intention, not reaction. You respond, you don't retaliate. You listen to understand, not to defend. Your presence becomes peaceful, not passive. You lead with clarity, not control. That's what elevates your energy. That's what creates depth. The ones who used to test your limits now realize they no longer have access. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Better at honoring your time, better at protecting your space, better at discerning who's worthy of your light. That inner shift speaks louder than any words ever could. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to no longer tolerate what drains you. It's the silent exit from environments that suffocate your spirit. It's the invisible boundary that tells the world, I've changed and I'm not going back. You stop fearing being misunderstood because you no longer need validation to be at peace. That peace becomes your compass. That clarity becomes your protection. And with that, you rise, steadily, unshakably, powerfully. The person you're becoming doesn't chase because they attract. They don't react because they've mastered their emotions. They don't shrink because they've stepped fully into their value. And they don't fear losing anyone because they've finally chosen not to lose themselves. That's the breakthrough that changes everything. When you stop waiting for life to give you permission and start claiming your place in it. When you stop explaining your glow and start embracing your light. When you stop settling for comfort and start choosing alignment, no matter how lonely the road may feel at first. That's when life mirrors your courage. It meets you with doors you never saw before. It responds to your discipline. It rewards your healing. And you begin to realize that everything you were chasing was always meant to find you. Once you became the version of yourself who could truly receive it. That is the power of stepping into your highest self. Not through force, but through freedom. Not through perfection, but through presence. Not through approval, but through alignment. And with every breath, you become more of who you were always meant to be. Strong, grounded, magnetic, and completely unapologetic about it.